And we're live. Welcome back, everyone. Craig here. So it's been a little while since I posted much of anything to this channel, and that's going to change now. Um, t- I had posted quite a bit to this channel last year, and then as I got closer to the end of the year, I spent a lot of time working on my actual channels, the channels where I produce content. Here, I mostly talk about kind of how I do those channels, how to produce content, how to use YouTube, how to podcast on YouTube. And so I've been really focusing on generating the content for those channels as well as some other kind of year end business stuff. Um, but I have also been working on a sort of a tiered course for those that are interested in getting some help doing podcasting, YouTubing, things like that. And so I'm really excited to share that. There will be a bunch of free stuff available to people in terms of like just checklist, how to guides. Uh, I'm going to have a weekly live stream here. I would hopefully every week, maybe not the same time and day every week, but the plan is to do this one on Saturday mornings around 8 o'clock a.m. Central Time, which is what I'm doing now. And I'll usually have a topic or two that I want to talk about so that if no one shows up, I can kind of provide some value to those who watch it later. But people should always be feel free to like show up and just ask questions, bounce off ideas, things like that. So um, by no means is any should anyone be discouraged from offering ideas or questions, and it doesn't have to be even remotely on the topic at hand. So that's kind of how I want to generate, how I want to do these. You'll always have an opportunity to come into the live stream and ask any question you have. Now, I am anything but an expert on YouTube. What I do have is a fair amount of experience, trial and error in building YouTube channels and podcasts, some of which have done very well, some which have been complete flops. It's just part of the learning process. And so I'm here to share my experiences, and for people that want, the one thing that I think I can offer is, and this is kind of where this is the whole point of courses usually, is it's not because that person is the smartest or most um, educated on something, but they figured out how to do things that can make the process more quick for someone else. And that's my goal here, is to help people more quickly go through the process that I went through. And the process that I went through was probably sped up to some degree by watching the videos of other people who had gone through their own struggles and trials to get to things. So that's kind of how these things work. So there will be plenty of free material. There will be the weekly live stream, maybe more than once a week if there's enough demand. I have a virtual assistant in the Philippines who does a lot of my kind of behind the scenes work. She does. I don't do a lot of editing. That's one of the things, kind of one of the core principles of my approach, is to minimize editing, because editing, in my experience, is the thing that brings everything to a grinding halt. And it's one of the reasons I'm a huge fan of live streaming. So like today, I'm just live streaming. I have no script. I have some basic notes, but otherwise I just kind of free flow. Now, not everyone feels comfortable doing that. I've been doing this long enough where I um, am very comfortable just kind of going with the flow. But live streaming, I'm going to be here every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock a.m. or until we pick a different time, and it forces me to make content regularly. And and then usually what we do is we download the live stream. um, we being my VA generally downloads it, runs it through a couple programs that we use, that will one of the things that's really cool about AI is it will take all of the ums and uhs and pauses and kind of stuff like that in these live streams and just chop it all out, and you have a very kind of a hard hitting efficient video at the end, and then we may add some b-roll and stuff like that. B-roll is just like where I'm continued talking, and let's say something pops up on screen, a clip, a video, image, whatever. You can do that stuff after the fact, but I try not to do a lot of editing. I'm a huge fan of just becoming comfortable with a process so that you don't really need to edit, because editing is the barrier to consistency. Editing is the barrier to consistency. You have to write that down. Editing is the barrier to consistency for most people. Um, and the in my experience, for most people, editing is much more about ourselves and the audience. I have numerous channels. I have a podcast that has over almost 600 subscribers, and we're up to about 270 videos. We do that once or twice a week. I have I don't know that I've ever gotten a comment that it wasn't polished enough. They didn't like some of the mistakes that just stay in the. Literally never had anyone say that. Um, I will get comments if we're late or if we missed an episode, things like that. So consistency is way more important than perfection or even improving things very much. I'm a huge fan of trying to make things as good as possible on the front end. To give you an example, so I have my DJI 2 mic here. It's a very nice mic. It's expensive, but it's very high quality and will provide a much better audio experience than the one. So I'm recording this in StreamYard onto my iMac. I literally just got done live streaming on another channel that I have, and because I was running late this morning, that one started at 7 a.m. I didn't have time to get this set up this morning, and so I just went with the stock mic and the stock camera. Right now, this is the stock camera. This is the iMac, and it's not great, but it's not terrible. My regular 4K webcam, it just isn't working right now for some reason, and no one ever cares. But try to get the audio. If your first investment, I think, should be a decent mic, something that's quality but easy to use. I have a Yeti sitting over here, which is what I've used for 99% of my online content across my various channels. Um, it's a great mic. I have one podcast that I do together with a buddy of mine, and we just share it. And it's a really good mic. It just sits on the desk. It's not one of these ones that kind of sits out in front of you. So that's I think, a really good starter mic. Um, the kids broke the cord off on the back of it, which is why I'm not using that. And what I like about this is you can turn away, you can walk around, and the audio will still work. So um, yeah. So anyway, my mantra is grip it and rip it, and don't worry about the editing. Minimize the editing. This week, my virtual assistant and I were talking about refining our process and actually adding a little or more editing to it. I don't do any editing in terms of like enhancing the video or the audio or whatever. Sometimes I'll cut stuff out. That I think is fine. Like if you are editing to cut stuff out, to cut like intros and outros or other stuff out, I'm all for that because that's easy. Take stuff out, but I'm we're talking about doing more, adding like B rolls and graphics and things like that, which is sounds really good in theory and it makes the video nicer, but there is a cost associated with that in terms of it's a barrier to you getting that video out. And so we're talking about it, and I'm trying as much as I can to delegate that process to her, and she's done great so far. She's pulled out some B rolls. Maybe it's not exactly what I would have picked, but I didn't have to do it. So one of the other things that you'll hear me talk about a lot on this channel is whether you're going to do editing or not. If you want to succeed, I strongly encourage you to consider adding a virtual assistant. My virtual assistant is part time. She works 10 to uh, 15, 20 hours a week. Um, and it just saves me a lot of time. I'm a huge proponent of using virtual assistants for stuff that is kind of like straightforward in what you do. Stuff that is more discretionary doesn't always work. I'm very fortunate. I have a VA who is very willing to like try things without a lot of guidance. But even if you don't have that luxury, you can have you. There's certain parts of this that are very standardized, and you do it over and over again. So I'm a huge fan. As soon as you can, to get a virtual assistant to just reduce as many of the barriers as possible to you putting out consistent content. I think the consistency of your content for the most part is more important than the quality, at least as it pertains to videos like this, which are mostly me talking. I'm not going out and doing things. I'm not filming stuff like that. I do have one of those channels. I have a channel that that I, if you want to check it out, it's called Homesteading Lawyer. That channel is doing very good, and I do almost all of the video on that comes from one of my two Insta360 Ace Pro cameras. This is like a GoPro. That one it's just basically me doing stuff around our farm, cutting firewood, running tractor, pushing snow, fixing things, burning things, building things, whatever. So I'm a huge fan of those kinds of channels, but those require more editing. Like those require some thought. The quality of the shot, the quality of the camera is more important, and I haven't really figured out how to delegate that. And so, if you have that kind of channel, you're going to have to kind of be prepared to do that yourself. Now, that channel is growing faster than any of my other channels, because people like to be, I don't know, visually entertained. There's nothing about me here talking to you that is going to be visually entertaining for most people. I would hope not. um, so, it just depends on the type of channel you're doing. Most of my content is talking content. It's informational, podcasting, teaching. And in that case, you just don't need to do a lot of editing. Set up your so, like here, I don't have a fancy studio. You can see there's stuff on the floor back there. Um, I try not to worry about it. Like, there's this treadmill sitting in the back, kind of a distraction, but oh well, right? You don't have to have a super nice studio. If you wanted to, you could blur your background. You could do a virtual background, which I've done before. Um, but then it just turned out to be another just a barrier, like getting a green screen set up and things like that. So I'm a huge fan. As long as it's not super distracting, you'll have to let me know if the background here is too distracting. The wood walls are pretty nice. I got my banjo on the wall, which is pretty much just for decoration now. I don't know if I'll ever get around to really learning it well enough. And I got my good crossbow back there and the gun safe here. Where is it? Yeah, right there. Um, Whatever. Maybe some people will be bothered by that, but this is our house here. So I'm a huge fan of trying to minimize as many barriers as possible to you to producing content. So today it's a Saturday morning, 8 o'clock a.m. I had kind of an idea of what I wanted to talk about, and I scheduled a live stream and I did it. And I haven't even started talking about the things that I was going to talk about today. So um, I think I think the way that the online content has evolved over time. I think for the most part, podcasts are going to become uh, less and less useful and important. I think YouTube is going to become much, much more important, and that's why I'm spending my energy trying to learn YouTube and help share that with other people as much as possible. So anyway, so that's kind of that. I will be here most every week. There's also a Facebook page if you like that. I haven't really gotten into the other social media channels with respect to this channel. Now, I depending on the type of channel you have. So, like, I have. It's gonna sound crazy. I have probably 6 or 7 regular YouTube channels that I am doing stuff with. Some of it is more marketing based for my business. The one is a podcast that started out. It's a personal, private podcast that I do with a not private, but it's a podcast that I do with a buddy of mine. And then that one has really grown, and then that has spun off actually to 2 other channels as the audience has grown. Um, Rather than trying to provide of a too broad of topics on the main channel, we've kind of f- pulled that back into the core stuff that really makes that channel, that podcast great, and then I've spun off the other ones so that those that are interested in the other sort of related but distinctly different topics, now we have our own highway, our own platform. And that's kind of been my approach. And I think for me, um, what I have found is when I've had too broad of a scope on my channels, you might pick up a lot of subscribers because you might have one video that attracts this group of people, but it's not really going to be sustainable because those people may have liked you doing a video. Like, for example, I had this my homesteading lawyer channel. um it used to be called Resourceful Lawyer, and it was a lot of tractor videos, a lot of homesteading videos, but I also had like workout videos, and I did videos that I do here like on podcasting and stuff like that. The only videos that got any attention on that were the tractor and outdoor stuff. No one on that channel cared at all about me recording my workouts, doing, weightlifting and stuff like that. None of them cared at all about this kind of stuff, and it actually was dragging my channel down. So I was like, okay, we're gonna narrow that channel down. We're gonna go from Resourceful Lawyer to Homesteading Lawyer, and then all of the content on that is going to be directly related to that idea. And the channel just has started taking off dramatically. And then this channel kind of came out of that, to be just limited to like podcasting and YouTubing and video. And so this is going to be very uh, targeted and strategic for that purpose. And then the other stuff that I do, like vacations and travel and weightlifting and working out, is on another channel, which was just my own personal channel under my name. And it may seem like it's more work to have multiple channels, but I just find I would rather have uh, 5 channels comprised of 100 subscribers that are very much focused and committed to that content. So each of those 5 channels has 100 loyal fans, people that you can network with, market to if that's your goal, as opposed to one kind of diverse channel that has 500 subscribers that are not really committed to the entirety of that channel, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I've approached it. I've tried to really narrow the focus of my channels. In some of the content, some of the video I do, I can actually put on multiple channels. So that's something to keep in mind too. Is it's not like you always have to make separate content for different channels. I just the parts of the content that I put on different channels changes a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind. Um, so what I want to talk about today is this. I so one of my podcast is how much what do I want to say about it? It's a uh, religious based podcast that is sort of focused on a particular issue within this religion that we're part of, and in within that, I come across a lot of other people that have content about our faith that is different, but we're all sort of in the same space, but we're focused on different things. And so I do a lot of cross pollination of our show with others, and we'll do interviews together. We've done joint live streams together and things like that. And sometimes they put out a course or a new book or something like that. And it's a great opportunity for us to talk, kind of like share our audiences a little bit. If someone has a book they want to talk about, I said, okay, hey, you want to come on my show and we'll talk about it, and my audience will get exposed to your book, etc., or vice versa. But what I found that just shocked me is how many um, online content creators have no real good way for the audience to get a hold of them. Um, and in particular, there was this one podcast that I listened to, and they have a very big audience. They're speakers. They get paid to go to conferences and talk to people about their niche, their content, but you cannot find an email address for them anywhere. The only way you could reach them is by messaging them on Instagram. And they did. I mean, I reached out to them. I asked them if they would like to come on and promote their book discuss their book on my show, and they said, "Well, we'll talk, think about it, get back to you." But for people that don't use Instagram, they have no way to get a hold of those people, and I just found that just remarkably crazy. Um, Likewise, there's another gentleman I was chatting with yesterday on Twitter. His He has a podcast, and then he has like kind of I think his is locals or Substack. I think it's locals, kind of an exclusive member community, and he's been kind of bemoaning the fact that his group or his fan base hasn't really grown very much. So I was just like, hey, he was asking for feedback and stuff. So I went, I checked out his website, I checked out his link tree, I checked out his YouTube channel, and I said, unless I'm missing something, I don't see an email address or a way for people to email you anywhere. He's like, oh yeah, I don't want people to, I don't want to make it that easy for people to get a hold of me. I'm like, well, what's the point then? Like, what do you want? Do you want, you get people that send you hate stuff. I'm like, okay. I mean, but I said, I think this is really backwards thinking. I said, you don't have to give them your personal email address. I said, go create just a basic free Gmail account for your show, right? John's podcast at gmail.com, whatever the case may be. You can create that, and yeah, you will get some spam, but I can tell you from my own experience, um, I get a very uh, significant, oftentimes heart kind of wrenching story in a positive way, but just a very touching email from someone about the content on our podcast. Almost, I would say not every week, but almost every other week, and sometimes more frequently than that. And those people oftentimes become guests on the show, or they provide ideas for the show, or we have a Discord community so people can come in and um, talk anonymously. One thing I will say about that, not to get too far afield, but I think it's really, really important that your audience have a way to interact with you in a very easy way and under terms that are comfortable to them. Okay. Live streaming is a great way, in my opinion, because anyone that wants to can come in and they can enter the chat if they want. You can send them a link and they can actually be on screen. Most don't want to, but they love showing up in the chat. I just got done live streaming on my other one of my other channels. It's a brand new channel I started, but people that I got to know on my one podcast came over, and we were just chatting and talking about just anything for close to an hour, right? And that, and he's in my Discord community, and he regularly comments on our YouTube videos. And I think the first time he reached out to me, he sent me an email. Um, so I really think for most people, you need to have a place that they can interact with you. At a bare minimum, you need an email address that they can reach out to you. I'm also adding probably a Google Voice phone number and place to text. Now that costs money. I think it's $20 a month to add that to your Google plan. Maybe that's not for everybody, but I use it for other marketing and business related stuff, so I already have it. Um, it's not my cell phone number. It's not my office number. It's a Google number, and that is, some people, they just want to be able to text you. Maybe consider making that an option. Um, Form a community where people can interact with you, and I would be very, very reluctant to make it exclusive or member only, or God forbid, you have to pay to be part of that. I think I think I've seen it more and more, seen it too often, that people create a community and or create a core podcast or a YouTube, whatever, and they are afraid to give all the juicy stuff out there, like, because they want to excuse me, they want to monetize it, and so they put it behind a paywall or something like that too early. I'm not opposed to doing that at some point in time, but I think you really have to grow an audience for free, and you have to continue giving a lot of your stuff away for free, because you will identify those small fraction of people that are just very zealous for what you have to offer, that will be happy to pay you $5 a month or $10 a month or whatever the case may be for more exclusive access. But you have to be careful not to put too much of your content behind that, and not to do it too early. That's my own personal feeling. But have a community, have a place where they can interact with you. To give you an example, so the podcast that I have, we've been doing that for about a year and a half. No, almost 2 years. Actually, 2 years in February. And that podcast actually started because I didn't actually intend to start a podcast at first. I had intended to create a type of forum for people that were struggling with those issues, to be able to talk to other people and support each other and get, you know, feedback. And I started that. I started a private Facebook group, and I invited in, I would say, a dozen or 20 of some of my closest friends, people that would undoubtedly have uh, useful experiences related to this topic. And I would post in there regularly, and I got absolutely no response, not even a little bit, like just almost absolutely no interaction or engagement from those people. Now, it could be that they just didn't care about this as much as I did, but I think really what happened is Facebook doesn't allow you to post anonymously. Like, you have to use your real identity. And the podcast talks about, stuff that most people keep private or don't talk about openly. And so Facebook made it really difficult for people to kind of open up and be vulnerable and say, yeah, I have that same struggle, whatever. When we opened up a Discord community, Discord is, I consider Discord kind of a combination of a Facebook group and Reddit. It's a lot of threads, but you can go in there and you can create a fake name, fake avatar, all that, and speak more freely, and not, if you don't want other people to know who you are, you can keep that confidential. And we have just very robust active engagement, and the stuff that people share is amazing. Facebook was a wrong tool for that. I think the only platform that really made sense for that group was something like Discord, and there's other ones out there, but something to keep in mind, and that has so we have a core group of loyal fans. I have one member that does our newsletter. I don't even have to do the newsletter. They are constantly out promoting us and tagging us on Twitter threads and things like that that pertain to our message. And so um, you have to make it possible for people to really to really interact with you and become a very committed fan. And so you can't do that if they can't ever get a hold of you. And the only way they can reach you is through, like commenting after the fact on one of your videos. It's even more true if you're just doing an audio podcast because, we also have our podcast on Spotify and Apple, and Spotify has a place for people to comment and stuff like that. I don't think I've ever once gotten a comment on any of our podcast audios on Spotify, but our YouTube page, we regularly get dozens and dozens of comments on every episode on YouTube. So something to keep in mind. If you're going to grow a channel, if you want to grow an audience, keep those things in mind. But like I said, I was just shocked at how I think afraid people are of people being able to get a hold of them. And I get it. Like I said, you don't want to list your home address. You don't want to list your cell phone number. Probably not anyway. You probably don't want to list your personal email. But that's not an excuse not to have an email. Have a way for people to email you. Ideally, have a way for people to text you. Um, have a way for people to interact with you either through a live stream or a Discord community or Facebook group, whatever fits your situation the best. But you have to be willing to take some of the flack. I had one guy, it's the same guy. I keep picking on him, but he his podcast was, I don't know where he primarily did his podcast because I never really listened to it, but he was always on Twitter, and I spent a lot of time on Twitter. Twitter is a great place to interact with the people that are especially interested in our podcast. And so we'd interact on Twitter, and he would say, "Hey, I'm going to start posting on YouTube again." And he'd post videos on YouTube, and he would complain that he'd get hardly any views. And I'm like, I mean, and I told him, I said, well, it takes time. Like YouTube is a little bit of a long play. Like 6 months is very normal and sometimes longer for people to really post on YouTube before you get any traction, unless you really know what you're doing. So I was like, you just got to stick with it longer. You've only been doing it for 2 weeks. You got to do it longer. He's like, oh, the algorithm hates me or whatever. It's all biased against me. I'm like, yeah, is it? So I was like, well, okay. So I'll go over and I'll check out your video. And I watched the video and I went down. I was going, I'll leave a comment. You couldn't leave a comment. He had his comments turned off. I'm like, well, there's your problem. you you don't let people interact with you. He's like, wow. Then if I have comments on, someone comes in and the trolls come in and all this, and then I'm like, so like, yeah, you're eliminating the bad actors, if you will, from showing up on your feed, but you're also eliminating the people you want to be able to comment. I was like, you're crazy. Like whatever. If you don't want to do YouTube, don't do YouTube, but don't do YouTube and then complain that YouTube doesn't work because you don't want comments on. Like that's just crazy, crazy. Like just totally backwards. And what I can tell you from my own experience, because in our podcast has some controversial components to it. We do have trolls come in, people that are very, very hostile to our message. But even those, Um, you know, I've never had to block anyone. I will usually go into comments, appreciate your comments. We're gonna have to agree to disagree or something like that. Or sometimes I'll just keep I was like, hey, okay, well, what about this? What about that? And some of those people have really grown the channel because they're there all the time. They're the first one to comment. And then our other kind of loyal fans come in and they're responding. And it really breathes life into the comment section of your video. So don't be afraid of like bad comments showing up in your feed. To be honest, I think you ought to see that as an asset. And so don't turn off your comments. Let people comment. And if you just scroll past if you can't respond in a decent way to negative comments and just scroll past, but just say, hey, have a great day. Like I do something like that. Just, hey, I hope you have a great day too. We love having your comments here, something like that. It really neutralizes the situation. So those kinds of things, like people, I don't know, unknowingly self sabotage their message, and then wonder why it doesn't take off. And so most of the stuff, most of the reasons that channels don't take off is because we're not doing it the right way, or we are not being consistent enough. We're not giving enough time. And so I'm a huge fan of like make it as easy as possible for you to make content and be consistent about it and realize that for the first how many months no one is ever going to watch your video, and it's okay. Our podcast that has almost 600 subscribers and is really gaining traction. The first it was almost the first 100 episodes, and we were doing 2 or 3 a week early on. It was almost really to the first 100 episodes before we really started to gain traction. And then it's just kind of really taken off from there. So you have to be willing to put in because you need time to get good at what you do. YouTube needs time to figure out what is your message and who is the people that are going to want to see this. Which is why it is important not to be too scattered in your approach to things. You want to it's fine to pivot and move things, but you want some consistency in your messaging from video to video to video so that YouTube can identify who are the people that would actually want to see this and they put it in front of them. And people aren't seeing your videos, it's not because YouTube is artificially stifling your channel. That would be counterintuitive. They want people watching your videos. They just YouTube just can't figure out who are the people that actually want to see your videos because it's not clear from your content who your ideal audience is. So if your channel is not performing well, it's because of something you're not doing or you're doing wrong or you just haven't given it enough time. What else? I think I had a couple other. Um. Oh yeah. Back to the email thing. Sorry to keep beating this dead horse. Um. I have had a couple. So I had a very uh, big name for our community. Come on our show and like if you're in if you're in our space, you know who this person is. And the only reason I got that interview is because that person, we showed up on a list of podcasts that are in this sort of region of the internet, and they have a publicist. He had a book coming out, and so they were just emailing us, "Hey, if you'd like to have this person come on your podcast, fill out this form." I'm like, okay. So I filled it out. I thought there's no way they're going to come on my show, just a small podcast. And in our podcast is a little bit, it's a little risque. I was like, "Are you sure you want to come on our podcast?" "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." And it was a tremendous interview, and it was a great video. And the only reason we got that is because we had an easy way for people to email us. So if you take nothing away from this video, make sure that people have multiple ways to reach out to you and make it as easy as possible. leave an email address that they can email. Ideally, have it so that they can click on it and it brings up, their um, their email app on their phone, whatever the case may be. Give them a number to call or text if you want, or at least text. Maybe off, I think you still want to have the social media messaging component to it. Maybe WhatsApp, things like that. I think you want to make it as easy as possible for your ideal audience to get a hold of you if they want to. If 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 you really want if you really care about your message and you want to share with other people, I think you have to be willing to let people in. So something to keep in mind is you're starting a channel or trying to move your channel to the next level. What else? I think that's it for now. I have been doing a lot of work on my YouTube channels. I think I've kind of unlocked some very interesting insights to things that I'm really excited to share with you guys. So I'm going to start wrapping this one up. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment below. Uh, Reach out to me by email, and I'll have to make sure I think I have an email address on this channel. If not, I always have a link tree address in the description, and at the link tree, again, I'll have to check on this channel, but the link tree should have a way for you to email me or whatever. But get a hold of me one way or another. And if I don't have an email, easy way for you to get a hold of me, let me know in the comments so I can fix that because I do want to practice what I preach. So anyway, I hope anyone that comes across this enjoyed this content. I hope you'll like and subscribe. I have a lot of really cool stuff coming out. Stay tuned because, like I said, I think I'm going to do a weekly live stream at around 8 a.m. Central Time on Saturdays. I might do a late afternoon / evening one as well if necessary. But yeah, just reach out to me. Tell me about your channel. I love to see other people's channels and learn from them and share what I can share about my own experience so that I can help you as well. So thank you for watching. And until next time, everyone, have a good one.